Hey, film friends, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film, a podcast where we break down movies with some of my closest friends and special guests. But today I am alone, stuck colonizing the ice planet Niflheim with a bunch of yahoos and reprinted Expendables. Bong Joon-ho has returned. Guys, it's Mickey 17. Oh my goodness, here we are. Guys, I know what you're thinking. Where the hell have you been, Furman? There is no Furman on Film without Furman. Well, listen, guys, I got through the Oscar season and that mad dash to see all the rest of those films. And what happened? So I fell down a rabbit hole of Apple TV Plus shows with Shrinking and then Severance, which actually Severance is a little ironic because some of the identity questions in that show in season 2 sort of come to play here in Mickey 17. But anyway, I went away for a while, had some job stuff changed, and here I am back, ready to go. Had to come back for Bong. He has returned, and we've got an interesting film that we got to talk about today, and I want to kind of approach it from several different angles. So, you know, I think my first question, before we just briefly touch on plot, is if you are not a film egghead, if you're not a cinephile, you know, if you don't know Bong's whole catalog and his place in sort of the firmament post Parasite and that Oscars and all of those things that happened, I wonder how this film hits you. Does it hit you a certain kind of way? And I guess specifically to turn the mirror back on myself, I wonder, do I like it? Am I willing to give it passes in certain places because it's Bong Joon-ho? And then other times, maybe am I harder on it than I should be? Because like when this guy is humming, he is one of the best out there. His entire oeuvre is remarkable. So we do have to get into some of the Bong Joon-ho stuff. We got to talk about his Korean versus his English films. We got to talk about touchstones of like different films inside of this one, I think, which are kind of all in the stew of analyzing it. But I'm not quite sure exactly how to go about all of that, except to say that I think they affected my viewing of it. So I think the first thing to say positively is I was just grateful to have a big budget film. This film cost like $120 million to make, I think, reportedly. It didn't make even close to that. And that sucks because, as I've said many, many times, that is essentially what we're dealing with now here in the land of IP. Which is that if you don't have a franchise product, if you don't have something that you can tag along to a series of other films or things, then, you know, it's not going to make much money. And Bong's films are genre heavy. They're original. I mean, this isn't adapted from another story called Mickey 7, which you'll notice 10 less than Mickey 17. But anyway. But I think tonally this is a little different. I think tonally it has some of the ingredients, some of the stuff in the stew is his own thing. And, you know, I guess a lot of people just didn't go see it in the theater. Maybe it's the time of year, post-Oscars hangover. I mean, I didn't see it in the theater, so I guess I'm part of the problem here. But I'm just thrilled to have it. And I do think that there are aspects of this, and this is what I was saying about, the craft is so damn good on some of this stuff, even when the film falters, that I'm still like, dude, I'm here under a master. So, you know, one of the things he does, he has huge international casts, and you see that again here. I mean, we've got our Pattinsons, our Naomi Ackie, you know, Ruffalo, Toni Collette, all that stuff. But then there's some other characters, Holliday Granger, and there's some other characters along the sides that sort of populate this grander universe that make it more robust. And so he rocks that. The plot of this movie is, so the Earth is in trouble, and so these people go to colonize an ice planet called Niflheim, which sounds like it has more vowels than it actually does. I think that's part of the joke, because it's like Nfil and then spelling, something like that. But anyway, and Pattinson gets himself and Steven Yeun in a macaroon like company, and then indebted to a loan shark, which is, if that's not a Bong dark comedy, black comic kind of thing, then I don't know what is. And so he's got to kind of extrapolate himself from what he's done. So he signs up to go on this expedition. The problem is he doesn't really read the fine print, and he becomes an expendable, which means that he volunteers to be subjected to torture, viruses, atmospheric pressures, all these sorts of things, and die and be reprinted like a Xerox over and over and over again. And that's the plot, right? So Pattinson's doing all kinds of stuff. He's giving you like a dumb voiceover here, which I don't like, a crazy accent, which he's always disguising himself. That is, I'll admit, very funny in places, but he's essentially a crash test dummy for this expedition here. So, okay, themes. Well, this is the problem here. There's the discussion of the self, right? Which, again, I mentioned Severance, but there's a question of identity here, like know yourself, understand yourself, because this guy is reprinted over and over until this crux moment when he meets a multiple of himself, and I won't go spoiling everything, but let's say there are personality distinctions between these two men, who are in fact both Mickey. And so I think there's this idea, like, can you understand yourself? Then can you be about the process of accepting yourself? And then finally, where this film wants to get to in the most broadest of terms is, can you accept others? Can you accept the other? Can you accept the alien? Which, hint, may stand for something else in our modern political discourse. So I think that Bong wanted to take this story and give like a political satire with some identity and philosophical sci-fi genre questions nested inside of it. And I think the results are quite mixed. So you get a picture that has a lot of the touch points of his other pictures, right? So you got like large corporations kind of hovering in the background, religious phenomenon or eccentrics in the foreground, or sort of undergirding political expedition. You got just a buffoonish male character and kind of an ice queen female, or a femme fatale even, who has her own sort of influence from the back. And I think that all of those are kind of in the soup here, right? That's the stuff. So let's see, like goods and bads. This guy is just the man at doing creatures. So like Bong, his whole thing is that he has a kind of a core of Korean films, and then a group of growing American films. So by those, I'm talking about Okja, Snowpiercer, and now Mickey 17. The Korean films, there's, of course, Parasite, Mother, Memories of Murder, which is an earlier kind of Seven-esque, very Fincher type thing, serial killer sort of story. And then The Host, which is a creature feature. And that was kind of my point, is that, even when this movie is bad, the sound, the production design, the creature effects, the world building, he's just top notch at all of this stuff, guys. He's so good at it that you just can't make a bad movie. I think of what the MCU has become, or in the hands of a much lesser director. I think what we would have had instead is this sci-fi epic where all of the creepers, those alien creatures, which they're like somewhere between millipedes or caterpillars meeting like large, I don't know, elephants, or he does this thing where he's doing stuff that's like sort of cute but gross, or adorable but grotesque. Like, that's the whole thing with Bong. And And there's this whole otherness of the alien or the creature, which is somehow displaying more human characteristics than the actual humans, like something you would have seen in Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, which I think you've got at play here as well. So that stuff is all just really, really good. And by the way, we'll come back to that in a second. Now, let's go for it now. Look, the reason this film falters for me is because not only does it want to tell this amazing story about multiples and multiplicity of identity and all of that stuff, but it wants to sort of coax in this like Trump era corporatized religious evangelical Christian right movement and buttressing of a buffoonish leader who it like that stuff is all there. And like, but it's so broadly comic that it's not comic. Like, it's really hard to have an analog for Trump when Trump himself is such an analog. Like, watching him do his own stuff is problematic. So I just think that when it reaches for these other beats, it just falters. And it would be problematic. Ruffalo's not bad in this movie, but I think the temptation would be like, well, come on, why are you criticizing Ruffalo? Like, look at what he's doing here. Has he ever done broad comedy this well? Well, actually, he has. It's called Poor Things. Like, last year, he was doing something in Poor Things, which was freaking hysterical. And his stuff here is not even like a fraction of that. And I think what else is problematic about this movie is it reminds me of other Bong movies, which in some cases are definitively better, Snowpiercer, and others where it's at least possibly better, and that would be Okja. So you got the creatures and accepting the environment, accepting humanity, can't we all just get along, kumbaya, of Okja, ecological stuff, and then you've got the class distinction stuff, which I think is at play in this story, which is just much better in Snowpiercer. So, I think all of that stuff is in the soup of the themes. But the movie, it wants to tell all of these different stories, and in so doing, kind of misses it. And I think that that's the way I would broadly characterize, is that his Korean films are deep, they're complex, they're nuanced, there's grayness in the villains. And the American films are broad, they're on the nose, they're kind of beating a dead horse at times. And so you're going for satire and you sort of land in like farce. And that's not to say there's not moments, like the media coverage of the war in this movie towards the end, the war, I think is some of the better satire of it. But most of the rest, to me, just doesn't work. So pros, yeah, like I said, the dude's the man. I think the other thing, and this touches upon what I just said, is that Pattinson is unreal in this. I mean, he's so good. Like, there's some question to me as to what he's really doing. Like, is he doing Buster Keaton? I mean, there's pratfalls, there's like comic sight gags, like modern slapstick type stuff going on. And then he's also doing the weird voice and all of those kinds of things. So, but again, what I'm trying to say is, like, to me, the big issue with this movie is that the third act moves fully into that like larger political, religious, polysocial, polyscience arena. And it sidelines the most interesting aspect of the story, which is Mickey 17 and Mickey 18, both as Pattinson and Naomi Ackie's dance of trying to sort of figure out how to navigate their identities in this world. And in the process of doing that, part of that story is the Timo character, which is Steven Yeun, who's really great, but underutilized. Like, he's just there's one scene with him in the prison, which if you've seen it, and I'm like, man, this dude is throwing heat, man. He's like Plemons in Civil War, where you're like, I get 5 minutes of this dude right here, but it's 5 of the best minutes in the movie. So, yeah. So I just think that time and time again, the movie is moving in the direction of parts of the story that are less interesting, have been done. And I think because of it, it's just sort of messy. It's just sort of a messy bit of thing. But because it's Bong Joon-ho and because he's built such a fabulous world for us, I can't, I simply cannot deny that this dude has the goods. And it's really interesting because after Parasite, this is essentially his blank check movie. In other words, that he could make whatever he wanted to make. And so he made this. And mixed results, but I think it's what's a bummer is because people aren't going to see it. Maybe some people will see it more on PVOD or whatever. It'll be just interesting to see where he goes next. But my encouragement to you would be A, to check his stuff out, and B, if you liked this like a modicum, check out Snowpiercer, not the show, the movie. And if you really want to dig into like when he is humming in his bag, then I think that a few of his Korean features, particularly Memories of Murder and Parasite, are just exquisite pictures. I mean, like Sight and Sound, best of decades type stuff. This guy is awesome. So I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts, captures some of the good and the bad. And I should say, I mentioned how good Pattinson is, but I mean, Naomi Ackie's awesome in this film. Yoon's good when he's allowed to be. Ruffalo, I think, is doing a little bit too much, but it's not his fault. Sebastian Stan just played Trump, and Trump is his own caricature every time he opens his mouth. And, I think Toni Collette, you bring Toni Collette in to do histrionics, and she nails it. So she's not bad, but we've seen it before, and we've seen it, I think, better. So that is that. Let me give you my FOF score, and then we'll get up out of here. First of all, I just want to say, I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about this movie? Did you actually watch it? Has anyone seen this damn movie? What are your thoughts? What are your score? Do you think I'm a moron? Someone called me a pinhead on my channel today. I thought that was great, pinhead. So if you think that my rating of a movie is pinhead appellation worthy, like calling me that name, that's awesome. But then how about you just tell me why you think I'm stupid? That would be great. I would love it. So all the Megan fans out there, if you think that my opinion is stupid, tell me why you love it. And if you love this higher than the score I gave it, then tell me why you love it too. And if you hated it, I would love to hear those thoughts too. I am an open book, and I can't wait to hear more from you guys about it. My score for this movie is that, and again, this is where I'm talking, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. But I wonder if I'm talking about a 3-star film if it's not Bong. And I wonder sometimes if I'm talking about a 4-star film if it's not Bong. I don't know. All I know is I watched this movie, the good outweighed the bad. The performances were solid. The world building was awesome. And Pattinson is on a heater. And I can't wait to see what projects he does with Nolan and all the other people that he's got in the works. So can't wait to hear from you guys. Thank you for coming back around. I have missed you all dearly. And I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film. Stay firm, my friends.